Hi, it's Dennis Daly, inviting you to go along with me on yet another trip, this time back again to Indiana. We'll start here in Palm Springs and take AMTRAK. The train goes through Yuma, across Arizona and New Mexico to El Paso, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, up into Arkansas, and finally to St. Louis. In St. Louis, we'll rent a car and go to Indiana. Then after about 6 days, take the car back, and then take Southwest Airlines, not back to Palm Springs, but to Las Vegas, and eventually drive back here. So come along on part 1 of my trip back to Indiana. We'll spend 54 hours on the rails of AMTRAK, but when we boarded the train in Palm Springs, it was the middle of the night. And when you do wake up in the middle of the night, sleeping in a sleeper car for the first time and open the drapes and look out, well, you don't see very much, an occasional railroad crossing. But you know, that numbing sound of the train and the slight jerking back and forth really is conducive to sleep. And that's what I did. It's morning in Tucson, Arizona. We're at the train station here. I haven't had time to comb my hair or clean up or anything because I'm taking this AMTRAK train from Palm Springs to St. Louis. And for the first time on AMTRAK, I got a sleeper room. It's called a roomette. It's about the size of a pay phone and a half. It's been an interesting trip so far, and Tucson is a great place to stop. Once you get going and you've had a little breakfast, you see a great diversity of scenery. Arid areas and other areas under cultivation. Sometimes in the distance you can see the interstate. And when there's a parallel track, you see that they're using concrete instead of wooden rails anymore. This is really God's country out here, and it goes on for miles and miles and miles. Well, it was a long trip across parts of Arizona and New Mexico. I don't know whether you can hear me over the noise and the wind. We're in El Paso, Texas now. You go through an awful lot of desert and an awful lot of areas of nothing to get here. I'm not saying it's bad scenery, but one of the cities we did go through that brought back a lot of memories was Lordsburg. Today it's just an exit on I-10, although AMTRAK does stop here. It's a good example of a decaying railroad community with a lot of decaying buildings, except for this one, the Stagecoach Inn, and notice the words Stagecoach. You see, long before Lordsburg, New Mexico was connected to the outside world by highways and rail and air, you got in and out of here by stagecoach. And so did John Wayne in the award-winning 1939 movie of that name, based on the book Stage to Lordsburg. It was Wayne's breakout movie. Orson Welles said that it was one of the most perfect movies ever made. And so you and I, in some ways, have been here to Lordsburg before. When you pull out of the city, you do notice something that you see in a lot of railroad towns, and that's a downtown section that barely has any life at all. It teaches you a lot about the evolution of transportation in this country, but people do live here. But I'll tell you this, no matter where you go by rail, you see a lot of America's backyards. Oh, and by the way, gas is still less than $2 a gallon here. Next time, we'll meet in Alpine, Texas. I'm Dennis Daly.